This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carannante.
Welcome to the Yanks Go Yard podcast. I'm Adam Weinrib alongside Thomas Carannante. Monday afternoon, 2 o'clock Eastern for show of the week. 2 shows this week. Yankee spring training begins this week, but will Marcus Stroman be there? We debate. 45 minutes, head-to-head, points awarded. No, not really, but we got to talk about it because hey, if you've been waiting for the Yankees to trade Marcus Stroman and you've been waiting for them, they've telegraphed it all spring long, winter long. You know they want to get out from under as much of this money as they can. You know they have 5 starters ahead of Stroman in the pecking order. You know he's too highly paid to be a number 6. You know he probably doesn't want to be that. He probably doesn't want to be a swingman. Well, this is the week when pitchers and catchers report. This is when push comes to shove. If you don't want Stroman on the roster on opening day, he can't be at camp this week. So the Yankees need to cut bait or shut up here. They either need to accept that this man is on their roster or they need to take action because now is the time when it becomes uncomfortable to face the reality that someone you've already alienated either has to show up and make good with the rest of the roster or has to get out of there so that you don't even have to deal with it. And by the way, that factors into the Nolan Arenado conversations as well. Not a pitcher. Got a little bit more time before he has to report, but we're going to have a similar chat there because the Cardinals certainly, as far as I can tell, don't want their plan A, B, and C for a trade chip heading to camp to just hang out with the fellas and chill with the guys and shoot billiards down at the local pool hall. So got to talk about that as well. Plus a couple of new names invited to Yankee spring training as non-roster invitees. Honestly, kind of interesting. And Aaron Boone's beloved Eagles have won the Super Bowl, so obviously we got to talk about it. But can he learn anything from Philly's dismantling of the Kansas City Chiefs? Here to break it down with me is Thomas Carannante of the Yanks Go Yard podcast fame. You can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms right after this show runs. You can also find us on YouTube, which is where you probably are right now, or you're on one of those podcast platforms, in which case, what's up? Thank you for finding us. Thomas Carannante, welcome to the show. Cody Bellinger, Jazz Chisholm, Anthony Volpe, Dom Smith, Spencer Jones, Everson Pereira, all the guys. Couple of guys have been spotted at camp already today, taking BP, taking outfield. Jason Dominguez is there. Sign of good chemistry or just not adhering to report dates? Maybe negligence. But pitchers and catchers are supposed to be there. It looks like the Yankees have a lot of position players already there, getting reps in. It's time. The broadcast schedule's out. It's baseball. The football season ended last night. I got the push notification that the Yankees tweeted a little hype video saying it's baseball season. I think fans of a lot of other teams got those push notifications as well. Game on. Game on, I say.
Baseball time, baby. Yeah, I'm liking the guys reporting early. I think I never understood the report dates anyway because pitchers and catchers report a week early and then the position players are just there like 6-7 days later. Just how about we all report at the same time? Wouldn't that be just cool? You get to the centralized location, you work out, you see your boys, you have some fun, get those extra reps in, which I think just from a mental perspective is probably good to get ahead of the report date. Makes you feel better, makes you feel like you're ahead of the curve. I don't know. Chemistry thing, I mean, that's number one probably where the Yankees need to improve. And if the early reports are any indication of that, I'm loving it for 2025. I think a lot of their struggles of late, as they've gotten further and further into the playoffs, have related to how either close they are or how deep they can, how deep they can dig to get to that next level of competition and face the adversity and tune out the noise and all that. So maybe this is the beginning of a change. I don't know.
I mean, this firmly sounds insane. So like disclaimer, this is obviously what a crazy person would say, but in 2009, they famously went on a pre-spring training bowling trip and had like a bowling tournament. And they won the World Series in 2009. 2020, they did a ping pong tournament. Now, 2020, we have no idea if that would have had any galvanizing effect because that spring training got shut down by the novel coronavirus. That season started at the end of the summer, and then they lost the DS at the end of a 60-game season. But last year, they did another ping pong tournament. The New York Yankees have bonded through a ping pong tournament, and what do you know? They went to the World Series last year as well. So here's a thing that the least scientific examination possible of baseball team success, but it's not a bad thing to see the guys there, including Cody Bellinger, including Jazz Chisholm, who was a Yankee for 2 months last year, the newcomers showing up Monday, February, who knows when they got there, but here we are Monday, February 10th. We're getting videos of all the Yankees doing outfield drills, backfield BP, etc., what have you. I haven't even seen the pitchers yet, nor the catchers. I just seen a bunch of Yankees offensive players hanging out at camp. Aaron Judge does this. He gets people together early sometimes. Maybe he's the one spearheading it, but a lot of big names already on the backfields. We're seeing the reporter pictures and videos already. Like if you're a reporter, start getting that 12x zoom ready, get that new iPhone and throw it in the trash, downgrade to the iPhone 6, because that's what it looks like all of your spring training pics and vids are taken on a Motorola Razr 4. Ready to see, portion of a chain link fence covering up the head of a pitcher who's 245 feet away. I can't tell if he's in windup or standing or doing pitcher's fielding practice. That's what season it is. It's right on time for blurry nonsense beat writer photos and videos. We got some good ones today. Look, Eagles Super Bowl dominance. I'm sure. I don't know if Aaron Boone is in Florida right now. He put up a wheels up Tampa tweet last week, so he probably did watch the Super Bowl from Florida. His beloved Eagles, even though he's from California, he's a USC guy. His dad played in Philly in the 80s with the Phillies, properly named baseball team. And so he became an Eagles obsessive. I think everyone who spends a good amount of time in Philadelphia loves the Eagles. That makes sense. If they're not good every year, they're fun. They're also fun and good most years. This year, they were fun and dominant. And probably the best run organization in the NFL. The Patriots hand that baton to the Philly Eagles. It's not fun to say as New Yorkers, but I mean, look, if you're a New Yorker and you're like, man, I can't believe I'm a Giants fan. My rival won the Super Bowl. They're not even in the same league as you right now. No. So it hasn't felt like less of a rivalry in my entire life. The Giants need to, make 15 different organizational changes before it even feels like they're competing for the same thing. But this Eagles team had the chemistry to be admired, drafted for depth, drafted at positions of strength. Yes, they got a little bit of luck. Some extremely talented defenders fell to them at positions where they probably shouldn't have, but they didn't second guess it. They didn't go, oh, we already have a cornerback, we shouldn't take Quinyon Mitchell, or do we really need Cooper DeJean at like 39? Shouldn't we draft a weapon? Don't we need a wide receiver or whatever? They just went, oh my God, there's a guy who's way up on our board and he fell to us, and we can work with this. We know we have the cooks necessary to build this into whatever we have to build it into. So they went ahead and grabbed those guys, and hopefully Aaron Boone's watching, because chemistry plus depth plus, just obtaining, let's say Yankees theoretically have 3 third basemen on the roster right now, right? But do we like any of them? If there's a third baseman that maybe would be an upgrade, maybe you don't worry about that and you just collect depth at positions of need. I think there are plenty, like you said, things for Aaron Boone to maybe be inspired by his hometown club. And the Chiefs do feel a little bit like the Dodgers, and in Philly's second hack at them, they tore them to pieces.
Yeah, I mean, you look at someone like Nick Sirianni, who you lose the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Terrible defensive game plan in that game. They gave up 24 points in the second half, relinquished the first half lead, lost the game by a field goal. You come back the next year, the closest thing to a collapse you could possibly have. They barely sneak into the playoffs. They lose that last game of the season to the Giants that we watched. Epic moment. Then they get destroyed in the wild card round. And then everyone's like, is this the end for Nick Sirianni and the Eagles? Like, wow, this is bad. Haven't seen a fall from grace like that in quite some time. And then they come back even stronger this year. And you look at how the Super Bowl unfolded, right? And the Chiefs did what they kind of needed to do. They neutralized Saquon Barkley, and then they needed to just go from there and figure it out. The Eagles knew that would be their game plan. And what did they do? They put pressure on Patrick Mahomes all night, which they knew would be probably the number one recipe in terms of flipping the game upside down. That's exactly what happened. They had 2 interceptions on Patrick Mahomes, which is essentially unheard of. They had really good plays on special teams. When Jalen Hurts had the ball in his hands and he was forced to do something, he made the big throw where he killed the Chiefs with his legs. The Eagles offensive line bullied the Chiefs defensive line and picked up all the blitzes. Like Jalen Hurts, it feels like at no point he was under duress. So you look at those phases of the game and you look at how Nick Sirianni, I guess, won the locker room back after last year, whether Do we believe that he lost it? I'm not sure, but there was a lot of turmoil at that point, and you lose 32-9 to the Buccaneers in the first round of the playoffs the year after coming within a minute of potentially winning the Super Bowl. And it's like, shit, this is bad. So you look at the Yankees, who had, Aaron Boone had that moment in 2023 when they got swept in the ALCS the year before. They come back for redemption. They miss the playoffs entirely. Then the next year they go to the World Series. But again, you look at the Yankees and it's not a team. Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, the first thing that they talk about in the postgame, and I know this sounds cheesy, but the first thing that they talked about was the team, the chemistry, the connectivity, everybody has somebody else's back. And you look at the Yankees and that might be the case. Like, they might be close, but in terms of execution, they're not. So on the field, they don't seem to have each other's backs because the defense is bad. The pitching execution is bad. The situational hitting is bad. The players who need to step up in big moments disappear. And I know that sounds rich because this team just went to the World Series, but we saw plenty of guys fail in big moments. We saw Aaron Judge essentially disappear for an entire month. Mm-hmm. And that could change. All of that could be different next year. But if you look at how the Eagles were able to handle, it's similar adversity, right? The Eagles, the way that they got bounced from the playoff last year and rebounded, the way that the Yankees got bounced this year, like, to me, it was more of the same. It was like another ALCS bounce at the hands of the Astros. It was swift. It happened very handily. And you look at the gap of just abilities and the depth and the execution, and you're like, these teams are not the same. Like, yes, the Yankees have a lot of talent and they got to this point because of the talent, but is everything else in place that needs to be running the way it should? Because it doesn't seem like it. Defensive miscues, poor bullpen decisions, poor pitching decisions, inability to pick your teammates up on offense. It's like, what? There's a lot missing here in terms of a championship formula. And the Yankees, I think, we look back and we laugh at people who were like, oh, the Yankees have the easiest path to the World Series. What a joke. And it's like, you look back and it's like, yeah, they did. But they got to the World Series and they had enough to get there, which is impressive. It's an impressive feat in its own right. But when there's this big of a gulf in between you and either someone like the Astros, who have run the AL for a decade, or you and now the Dodgers, who were previously a laughingstock, and all of a sudden just flipped the script this year, and now they're the gold standard after being completely laughable choke artists for the last 15, probably longer than that, 15 years, and then decades of missing the postseason or finishing at the bottom of the division. So, it seems like the Eagles had the blueprint in all facets of the game, and the Yankees, if Aaron Boone was watching closely, I hope he was able to learn some lessons and apply it to the Yankees team this year, because the one advantage that the Yankees, or the one benefit that the Eagles have over the Yankees in terms of is really the longevity. Like, the Eagles don't have a closing window. The Yankees they have a closing window in 3 years. Like, this needs to happen now. So hope Aaron Boone was taking notes.
And it's harder to maintain a window in baseball. Like NFL, the Eagles have this closing window, but if they just reload their offensive line, like, they can extend it. They'll find ways to continue to compete, even if they're losing this wide swath of free agents. And I just trust their infrastructure. Like, that's the thing that I can't quite get to with the Yankees. We're close in some respects, right? I trust Matt Blake and the pitching infrastructure to figure out the bullpen. I don't know who the Yankees' second lefty reliever is right now. I don't know if they're going to get one. Good job bringing back Tim Hill. We'll talk a little bit about their non-roster work yesterday. But, look, I'm not sure who the names are. I'm not sure who's handling late inning duties. I think the Yankees have enough in the bullpen right now that I'm like, yeah, Luke Weaver, Devin Williams, I like it a lot. We'll see if there's an interesting new seventh inning wrinkle by the time midseason rolls around. Loaiza get healthy? Ian Hamilton, does he stay? I think they'll find somebody. I think they'll uncover someone at spring training. I'm the type of psycho who's excited to see JT Brubaker operate. But in terms of, finding lineup lengtheners and figuring out depth and figuring out, how to acclimate rookies and how to, whatever that missing ingredient is, I'm not 100% confident in that. And I'm so confident in a team like the Philadelphia Eagles figuring it out. Dodgers, obviously. I mean, it took the Dodgers forever to get over the hump, but now that they've done it, I'm fairly confident that they upgraded Ryan Brazier, the projection systems say, Ken Rosenthal had a great article on this morning, that Kirby Yates is projected for slightly better statistics in some in some aspects versus Ryan Brazier, but barely. In Ks per nine, they're pretty equivalent, and Kirby Yates is 37. And this was just sort of an FU move by the Dodgers, paying $27 million, tax included, to upgrade with Kirby Yates. It might not even be an upgrade. You're just, I mean, obviously they see something, but I will trust the Dodgers there. I don't fully understand it as anything other than a financial flex, but I will trust the Dodgers there. I'm there with the Yankees about 50% of the time, but offensively, it often feels like, some of these obvious moves they struggle to make, like filling in a third baseman. Some of these obvious moves that they've been tied to for 2 years, they're inevitably going to make, but you still don't agree with them. That's where I'm at on Cody Bellinger. Like, I get it. It would have been an interesting supplement, not my ideal offseason centerpiece, but I get it. But we all acknowledge Cody Bellinger was going to be a Yankee like 2 years ago, and somehow he didn't sign there in free agency. And somehow the Cubs didn't offer him up at the trade deadline. And it took 2 years, but we got here. There he is. Because it does feel like Aaron Judge plays an outsized role in that type of recruitment. But we talked, and so when he likes a player, they like a player. But we talked about this all the way back. The Yankees and Joel Sherman was all over this, being able to out-talent teams, but not necessarily outplay them in the moment, like barely surviving their own inadequacies and defensive problems because of how talented they were. Juan Soto helped in that department. I would argue that the Yankees out-muscled the Royals significantly, but by the time Cleveland got there, it was a pencil-thin margin, and if not for Brian Rocchio single-handedly making goofus defensive plays and Emmanuel Clase falling apart, that series did not need to be a 5-gamer. I mean, Giancarlo Stanton went supernova, Aaron Judge largely disappeared, and Rocchio dropped a pop-up in one of the home games, flubbed one with Clase on the mound in that game 4 that we talked about with Canely last week. Wonky defensive plays by like one guy on the Guardians led to that series arguably flipping, and they sort of matched the Yankees beat for beat in those defensive flubs. But Gleyber Torres lets the World Series squirt through his glove, and then Nestor Cortez comes in instead of Tim Hill, and Juan Soto makes a garbage play in right field in game 1 too. They don't execute with the bases loaded at the end of game 2. They easily could have taken the first 2 on the road in LA and didn't take either of them. They come home and just a complete shutdown Walker Buehler in game 3. They win game 4, and then all-time disaster in game 5 that both feels completely emblematic and somewhat irrelevant considering they were already down 3-1. But that series was in aggregate lost by the Yankees by 1 run. Not victory lapping an aggregate series loss, but just indicative of, hey, World Series is hard. Dodgers didn't really play well. Shut down by the Yankees pitching outside of Freddie Freeman. Yankees didn't really play well, shut down by multiple Dodgers pitchers. And yet the margin was, do you make winning plays in winning time? And I trust Dodgers to do that. I trust organizations in the NFL like the Eagles to do that. I do not trust the Yankees to do it right now in every aspect. And that's what we need to see. And it's tough to prove until they're actually under duress. But you lay the groundwork at spring training with, first of all, strong offseason, strong personnel moves, strong acquisitions of depth, and then strong chemistry when you actually get boots on the ground. Tomorrow, February 11th, is the Yankees pitchers and catchers official report date. First workout is Wednesday the 12th. And that chemistry begins with even the little things, with Marcus Stroman, which how
about that? How about that? Like, the Eagles threw away all of that drama surrounding the locker room, surrounding the future of the team. And it was like that. Everybody forgot about it. And meanwhile, the Yankees, it feels like every year will start with Stroman, put themselves in these positions for us to be talking about stuff other than what's going to happen in 2025, as opposed to be like, why is this guy at spring training after we've been talking 6 months about him getting traded? Why?
And if you don't want him on your roster, which it seems like they don't, and if he doesn't want to be there, which it seems like he doesn't, because his Instagram is wiped, right? It's gone. It's
standard thing that he always does, dude.
It's been gone for a while. And I talked about this with Robert Murray the other day, who was like, that happened even long before people noticed it. I was like, yeah, I don't really check Marcus Stroman's Instagram every day. But he purged himself of the Yankees connection. He unfollowed the team. again, like, is that a guy who seems like he's in a great spot mentally? That's a guy who gave it his all last year, and Aaron Boone noted that the defense let him down. Brian Cashman noted that, and Brian Cashman's 100% correct. And I would be game for Marcus Stroman as the depth starter, especially at this price, with the spot on your roster and the spot on your payroll already taken. There is no way you're getting any team to pay more than like $4 million of this money. So you are not clearing 18 or 16 or 14 mil. You're clearing 3 to 5 million maximum to get him out of there. I would take him as a sixth starter, as depth. Someone's going to get hurt. Hell, it might even be him. He might limit his innings himself. But does he want to do that? It seems like no. It seems like he feels disrespected. So I'll take an energized, excited, ready to contribute version of Marcus Stroman to fill any role on this roster at that cost. But he doesn't want to do that. He unfollowed the team. So in that case, you have to figure it out. You can DFA if you want to. It's a horrible look. You shouldn't do that. But you can find a trade partner. You can match salaries. You can figure out how to sweeten a Stroman with a prospect and go get Luis Arraez. Not my favorite fit in terms of an infielder, but a fit for sure, an upgrade, no doubt. You could figure out Nolan Arenado, who, again, the Cardinals don't want at camp. They ended the era. They traded him to the Astros. The Astros were ready to grab him. Arenado said no, probably shouldn't have, because now he is still sitting in purgatory on February 10th. But there were conflicting reports about whether the Yankees floated Stroman in an Arenado salary matching trade at some point. Stroman's got 1 to 2 years left on this deal. Arenado has 3. Arenado's a little bit more expensive. The Yankees absorb the rest of that Arenado money and maybe pay out a little bit of Stroman's money and attach a top prospect. You never know. There were conflicting reports about whether or not they explored this back in December. We kind of laughed at it. The Yankees' best offer was, we'll give you this, what about this guy we don't want for a rebuilding Cardinals team? But hey, if it's Stroman and Gage Zeal or Stroman and Everson Pereira or Peraza, is that a little bit interesting? Especially as they get rid of Arenado and need to fill a long-term need at third base. Look, I don't know, but I think this isn't an anti-Stroman argument. This isn't a he doesn't fit, he's pointless, why are they paying him this money, he's overpaid. This isn't even, hey, they should pay to get him out of here rather than try him out in the swingman role. It just doesn't seem like he wants the swingman role. So keep him happy, keep him satisfied, do whatever it takes to find a new landing spot. And there has to be a way to get him onto another roster and get an infielder onto yours. And yet we're 1 day away from
here.
Find out. We're 1 day away from him. We're going to find out. Is he here? Is he at camp? Is he going to go to camp and then leave? Are we poisoning the well the first week of spring training? I mean, I'm sure the Yankees can overcome this. If they flame out of the playoffs, I'm not going to be like, should have gotten rid of Stroman before February 11th. What are you doing? But it's certainly an odd harbinger to start the year if they do let this happen.
Yeah, I mean, and it goes on with the narrative of every year there's 1 or 2 positions unfilled. And, I don't know what other teams do that. I know there are other teams that do that, right? There are teams that are less fortunate. There are teams that don't have the resources that the Yankees do. But if you're the Yankees, if you're the Mets, if you're the Dodgers, if you're the Red Sox, there is no excuse any given year you should be going into the season with massive question marks at 1 or 2 positions and or being stuck with the possibility of a toxic situation with a player, unless it's completely unavoidable, but in this case seems very, very avoidable, or having the threat of a wildly below average, ineffective, way below replacement level player having to start on your roster for at least the first few months of the year. So that goes hand in hand with the third base situation this year. This is another narrative. It goes hand in hand with why is Marcus Stroman here if you didn't want him here? Why are you going to put him in a situation where he clearly has no desire to respond with any sort of force or fervor? So this is really where it boils down. No, these moves are not going to do the Yankees in, but they are distracting. They do affect the dynamic in some capacity, and they eat away at the team as the year goes on. And you can't say that that's not true, because the more of these situations that continue to balloon in the media, whether it's Stroman, whether it was, last year with left field when the Alex Verdugo situation kind of went sideways. And then that was a discussion. When you talk about Anthony Rizzo and his inability to perform due to that injury, and then them refusing to address first base, whether it's Gleyber Torres leading the league at second base in errors for 2 out of the last 3 years, and then they try to trade him 2 or 3 times and they don't, and then they leave him on the roster and he's clearly unhappy, and he's the only player for some reason getting disciplined when there's a roster full of people who don't hustle or who don't pay attention to fundamentals. So it's like, that's how this stuff gets out of hand. Like, no, we're not going to be sitting here in October being like, man, can't believe Marcus Stroman came to camp. That was really a vibe killer. It's like, it's going to affect the team somehow. It's not going to ruin their World Series hopes, but to me, it's unprofessional. That's really what it comes down to. It's lack of professionalism in kind of a department that the Yankees value. The Yankees outwardly, the marketing of themselves is, we're the Yankees, we're professional. This is the Yankee way. This is how it needs to be done. Is this the Yankee way? Is this the way it's supposed to be done? Because, like, how about this? Last week, Brian Cashman goes on Yes Network and brings up Gleyber Torres again. Why? Yeah, Gleyber Torres isn't on the team. I know he was asked a question about Jazz Chisholm and third base, but you don't have to bring up the fact that you acquired Jazz to play second base last year and then one of your players didn't make that happen, because here's the reality of it. One, you could have made it happen. You decided to not let it happen. And then you decided to put it in Aaron Boone's hands, who, surprise, surprise, Aaron Boone let the player decide what he wanted to do. And then it was awkward for everybody. Secondly, the simple answer to the question is, where do you think Jazz Chisholm is going to play this year? Second base. He's stronger at that position. We have a vacancy there now, so good fit for him. Mm-hmm. We don't need to hear about what Gleyber Torres did or said or is doing last year or is doing right now. Nobody cares. You know, that was something that was 4 years overdue that the Yankees hitched their wagon to and refused to cut bait, and they learned the lesson yet again. But why are we bringing up why are we reopening old wounds when we don't have to? I don't care about Gleyber Torres blocking Jazz Chisholm anymore. Like, we yelled about that in the first 2 weeks of August, and then we were done with it because we had to move on, and there was a division to win, and there were playoff matchups to look ahead to, and there was pitching issues to sort out, and there were defensive issues to sort out. Like, this is so far down the list, and again, professionalism, the fact that we're bringing this up and we're even talking about it, and even if he didn't mean, like Brian Cashman, I don't think he meant it maliciously. I think he was just recounting how things went, but like, yeah. Haven't you been in this situation long enough to know how that's going to get received? You had to have been, because you speak in front of the media all the time, and I'm sure there's somebody out there clipping stuff that we're saying or that fans are saying and going back to the Yankees being like, hey, like, fans are pissed. Mm-hmm. Media is saying this. Look at all the fallout from the Joey Gallo trade. Like, it's pretty easy to see how all of this stuff turns into more toxic discussions that create, more feelings of ill will. So you talk about Torres, you get fans riled up in that regard. And now, we're talking about a third base vacancy, and we're trying to wrap our head around like what the reality is. You have Aaron Boone saying it's unfair that fans are counting out DJ LeMahieu because there's a possibility he'll be healthy. And it's like, dude, he hasn't been healthy in 4 years. No one's counting out his abilities. We're living by what we have witnessed for 4 years, and you're trying to tell us otherwise. Again, unprofessional. Like, all of this stuff is unprofessional. Mm-hmm. All of this stuff seeps in through the cracks and affects morale, and it affects performance, and it affects whatever else you want to associate with it. But like, more of the same. And now what? We're going to introduce Nolan Arenado late to camp. If that's an option, Stroman's going to show up to camp. We're going to ditch him. 2 days in. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but you put yourselves in these situations and it looks bad and it distracts from the main goal. The main goal is a World Series. It kind of doesn't feel like this team is ready to win a World Series if these things are still lingering right now.
Yeah, the Gleyber thing, very annoying, but like annoying last year when we saw the Gleyber quotes at the trade deadline that were like, I'm a second baseman. We already knew that. He wasn't breaking news to us, Brian Cashman, last week that Gleyber didn't move. And I do see a comment saying they should have told Gleyber he was moving, not asked him. I mean, is there any reason to believe that Gleyber would have been better at third base than Jazz was? Jazz was pretty good. I think ultimately they got that right. The answer was trade Gleyber. Like, that's the conclusion we came to. Okay, here's Jazz Chisholm. Now what's next? Something creative using Gleyber Torres? No, apparently the answer was just wedge people into strange spots. I don't think the answer was Gleyber's got to play third, Jazz plays second. Jazz was much better at third than Gleyber would have been, I think. And Gleyber was comfortable down the stretch. But again, we're reassessing now. And again, Gleyber Torres is tweeting, I'm sleeping. I'm not talking about this. I'm preoccupado or whatever on his Instagram story, which then he deleted the tweet. So clearly, not willing to stand up to a classic example. And look, I've been there too. When you're like, I'm going to say something snarky on Twitter, and then someone says something mean back to you, and you're like, oh my God, people saw that. I forgot. Oh, shit. Okay. I forgot I was sending that into the public sphere, not just typing it to myself.
Was Gleyber watching the Yes Network?
I don't know. It came quickly. He figured it out very fast, and he let a tweet go, and he let a cool photo of him, riding outside a dune buggy or whatever also go on the home screen. So, who the hell knows? Good job by Gleyber. Hope he bounces back in Detroit, but not my second baseman, not my infielder. And the Nolan Arenado thing, look, it went from a cautionary tale and a worry and, hey, don't accidentally pursue this, to something I believe that the Yankees would benefit from as an upgrade at this point in time. But I'm not necessarily taking it seriously. It seems like there are three teams that the Cardinals re-engaged on Arenado last week: the Yankees, Dodgers, and the Red Sox. Only problem is none of these teams make a lick of sense. The Astros, the first team that he declined it to, made sense. Theoretically, the Yankees are the best fit of those three, even though the ballpark fit is bad, even though Arenado's back issues are very real, even though Arenado's offense was regressing last year already, and you can't just count on him being a Gold Glover in perpetuity. The defense will decline as well as he ages, as his back bothers him more and more and lingers. I like the fit. I think he's an upgrade on LeMahieu. Oswaldo Cabrera is best in a utility role. God knows he will still get his starts, even if he is not a starter. He's a great bench piece. Oswald Peraza entering his final spring training before they have to it's nut cutting time with Oswald Peraza. No minor league options remaining. So either he's on the MLB roster or bust this spring, or somebody else's, major league roster. But his trade value is nil at this moment in time. He either shows out and he makes the Yankees and he makes us all look fools, or he shows out and they send him somewhere else, or he shows out and they use him in a chip in a Nolan Arenado trade. Again, yes, tomorrow is not the deadline for a Nolan Arenado deal. We can still talk about this down the line in the future, but it's getting to that pressure-packed time. And Arenado has been trying to telegraph himself to the Dodgers all offseason. That doesn't make sense. He's not the kind of player that they pursue. They don't do aging, low exit velocity former stars. And they would have to move Max Muncy to accommodate. Why would they do that? Just because he wants to come home? Not sure. Red Sox, it sounds like they've had the most substantive talks. Chaim Bloom knows the Red Sox farm system, but they don't want to act before the Bregman chase concludes. Alex Bregman's not getting 5, 6, or 7 years, I don't think. That puts the Red Sox firmly in his mix. And Bregman, you can fit on the Red Sox roster. It creates a weird little shuffle, but it works. Arenado is a deeply strange person to fit on the Red Sox roster. You would have to make Rafael Devers your DH. Rafael Devers does not want to be a DH. He's like 27 years old, and they promised him when they extended him that they wouldn't move him so soon. So that's awkward. He's the face of your franchise, even if he doesn't want to be. He's your best hitter. You can't upset him in camp by bringing in a league average bat to play potential Gold Glove defense at third base. Tristan Casas is at first base. They've been exploring trading him for pitching upgrades, but that would be A, very stupid, and B, unlikely to happen in mid-February. They've got prospects. They've got Christian Campbell ready to play second. They've got Roman Anthony. They've already got too many outfielders. You're running out of spots for guys. If Devers is your DH now, Yoshida can't play. He's a 110, 115 plus guy. He's bat forward. I think the Red Sox are pretty good, quite frankly. And I think their fans want some right-handed thump, and I love it. But Arenado weirdly can't hit lefties, which would sort of neuter the impact of his right-handed thump. Sounds like the Red Sox are maybe the most likely landing spot for Arenado. But I even as a person who's scared of everything the Red Sox do, I don't understand that move. And I wouldn't understand the shuffle and accommodation necessary to make it happen. So every arrow is pointing at the Yankees here, but except for the internal ones, except for Jack Curry saying, not something they're pursuing. Thumbs down, not interested. About a month and a half ago. You wonder if Paul Goldschmidt gets in Aaron Judge's ear. as this drags on. They're at camp. They were spotted talking together today. You wonder if Judge starts agitating for an Arenado trade. You wonder if, even though Peraza's market on the trade, what waiver wire right now is near nil. You wonder if, okay, we know that he's almost valueless, but what about as a sweetener in an Arenado trade? Will you take him then? Like, he's run his value close to ground level, but in a bizarre trade, it's hard to match up on values for Arenado. In a strange trade like this, does he suddenly have more appeal? So that's what I'm watching. We got a couple more days here before position players report. You got about a week, and it feels like the Red Sox have the momentum, but should they? Do they? Is that just the way that the Twitterverse is spinning? The Yankees are the logical fit here. Even if he's not the ideal, even if he's not the dream, even if he's not the Nolan Arenado of old, they're the clear logical fit here. Forget the park factor. It's true. There's no perfect solution.
No, it's all bizarre. The more things that I read, it's DJ LeMahieu being slotted into the starting third base role to begin the season. And I just don't know how, I don't know how you do that. On the flip side, I don't know how you import an equally expensive player such as Arenado to essentially take DJ's spot. And then you have a $15 million guy on the bench. And whatnot. So like putting themselves in a box and not being able to kind of maneuver out of it, or choosing not to maneuver out of it until the last second, because we know how they operate. We know that they want to get their way on the free agent market. They want to get their way on the trade market. But as long as we keep seeing DJ LeMahieu being projected as the starting third baseman, it's hard to take this team seriously. The more that we realize that, like you just said, like Oswald Peraza out of options. What happened here? Like, this was a top 3 prospect in the organization. Now he's out of options. Now he has no role in the team. Now he has no trade value. Like, what are we doing? Again, unprofessional. So I don't know where Arenado's going. I don't know if he would be the answer for the Yankees. Obviously, he would be an upgrade in terms of just being a body, because you can't rely on DJ LeMahieu to do much at this point. You're putting Oswaldo Cabrera a bit in a box. Like, I think his best usage is in a super utility role, and if he's going to be competing for the starting third base job, like that takes away from his strengths. The goal is to have Oswaldo Cabrera play everywhere. He could play first, he could play second, he could play short, he could play third, he could play the corner outfield spots. That gives you a lot of flexibility with giving guys rest days. Switching up the lineup against maybe right-handed pitchers, because Oswaldo's stronger from the left side of the plate. And I just, again, it's the failure to maximize the strengths of players, failure to get ahead of these situations that eventually blow up or become more and more undesirable by the day. No one was particularly interested in Nolan Arenado, I think, in the Yankees universe, like fans, even analysts, like you said. Like, this has been shot down by multiple Yankees insiders saying, like, this is not what the Yankees are interested in. The answer would have been Bregman. They're not doing Bregman, obviously, based on what we're hearing in terms of the offers out to him. I think if they wanted Bregman, they would have just had him by now. They would have known what the number is to go ahead of in terms of years or in terms of money, and it would have been done after that.
And we know he loves the Yankees. So, growing up, he's a Jeter guy. So even if he doesn't want to take a 4-year deal in Chicago or a 7-year deal in Toronto or whatever these extraneous offers are, you would think that if the Yankees came calling and they're like, hey, your market's weird, we know you don't want a short-term deal, but how about $35 million this year and then an opt-out after this year? And if you fall apart, which you won't because we love you, then we'll be stuck with you. But if not, you can go test the market. And how about you win a ring in the Bronx where you've always yearned to be because you crush us? I think Bregman would say yes.
You think? Well, then what are they waiting for?
I don't want to spend $30 million this year. Would you take Marcus Stroman? Can we do a sign and trade?
Marcus Stroman goes to nowhere.
Sign and trade on the free agent market.
Like, we're just gonna get rid of this money and
what the hell?
Right, cool. Where's it going? But yeah, I don't know. Like, you date it all back to the Josh Donaldson trade, right? Like, that was supposed to be the third baseman, and even at that point, you were just like, why is this the third baseman? Like, we need We already have an old team. We don't need a star rookie at third, but maybe someone who isn't going to fall off a cliff and then create another positional vacancy a year later or 2 years later. The revolving door here is just frustrating. And then you look at the reality of the situation is where they've let someone like Aaron Hicks waste away for too long. They let someone like Gleyber Torres waste away for too long. The list goes on. Gary Sanchez. And all of these are unfortunate. Like, nobody's happy about this. Nobody's sitting here being like, oh man, like, thank God those guys are gone. The only reason we're saying like, oh, thank God there's a solution is because we've watched these things crash and burn for 2, 3, 4 years at a time when it was obvious that in that, in the short stretch of time, it wasn't the answer. And yet somehow there's this imbalance of sticking with these players for too long who don't do enough for you, or constantly having positional questions at important starting roles in the lineup or important roles on the pitching staff. Like last year kind of went into the year with no bullpen solutions. You could call Clay Holmes a bullpen solution. I understand where you're coming from. He has elite stuff. He was developed to have elite stuff, but we saw what he did the year prior with blowing up in high leverage situations, with blowing saves. And then what happens in 2024? He blows the most saves in the league, and he wasn't closer for the final 6 weeks of the season.
I can't wait for Clay Holmes, the Met, no matter what it turns out to be. Like, if he's a dominant ace, I'm like, great, that's very cool. And if he's as terrible as I think he'll be, I'm like, great, that's even cooler.
There's no in between either. It's one or the other. But yeah, it's hard for us to look at this team. Look, it's exciting. Spring training's here, baseball season's here, but you zoom out and you look at the Yankees situation and you're just wondering, is this going to be any different from last year outside of like maybe a slightly improved defense? I honestly don't know. I mean, I higher on them a little bit just because of the upgrades they made on the pitching staff and the fact that now they have bullpen stability with Luke Weaver taking that that next step, and Devin Williams being the obvious closer, and that's a role they're going to keep him in, and they're not going to do multi-inning duty with him because he's in his final year of arbitration eligibility, and next year will be free agency for him. So, I mean, the structure is better, sure, but now you run into a talent issue. Do you have enough talent? Do you have enough guys who have been here long enough to instill that team chemistry? Because there's new big name players coming in every year, and I don't know if the foundation or the infrastructure has been laid to just welcome these guys as seamlessly as you might hope for. I don't know. Again, like, it appeared to have worked with Juan Soto last year, but did it have any lingering effects? Obviously not. He took $5 million more guaranteed dollars to go to the Mets, so the chemistry didn't matter to him. Being a Yankee didn't really matter to him. And again, I understand there were escalators in that contract, but when you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, and then an escalator is anywhere in between the range of 5 to 40 million, like, the choice is obvious. You pick the place that you'd rather be, or you pick the place that gives you a better chance to win. And either Juan Soto did not want to return to the Yankees, or he felt for whatever reason the Mets gave him a better chance to win. Or I guess there's a possibility he just wanted $5 million more dollars, but that's still hard for me to wrap my head around.
Yeah, and a family suite. And better treatment for his chef.
Nicer security guard, and whatever food he wanted to be delivered to him during the game.
It's going to be really funny when that security guard from Yankee Stadium shows up at Citi Field too. Little Juan Soto jump scare, like, oh, come on! I thought I got rid of you. Paul Blart, mall cop, keeping him out of the locker room. Godspeed to Juan Soto. Whatever. I don't think about him anymore, but it's true. And we're going to be monitoring a lot of these strange goings on as camp opens. How about a Luke Weaver extension, by the way? How about that? It feels like a necessary.
No way. They're not going to do that.
Maybe work into your plans. I don't know. Hey, by the way, earth-shattering move yesterday. I'm sure you all remember exactly where you were when you got the push notification, because you were planning for the Super Bowl, and it was also yesterday, so it's not hard to remember where you were yesterday. The Yankees added 2 more names to the invite list for spring training non-roster invitees. They're actually interesting, and I'm not going to just poo-poo them and say you're not going to hear from these guys again. They don't really have a backup catcher. Brian Hoke just put out his projected roster. It includes Alex Jackson as the backup catcher. almost by default. I mean, that barely interests me. It also includes DJ LeMahieu at third base. It also includes Marcus Stroman among 6 starting pitchers. Or it includes a lot of things that we already know. This is how things appear to be going at this point in time. But that just further indicates that the backup catcher role is totally unsettled after they trade Carlos Narvaez for an intriguing Red Sox pitching prospect, after they trade Jose Trevino. So they bring in yesterday Ronaldo Hernandez, who I was like, I know that name. Is that a guy from the lower levels of the Yankees minors? Why do I know that person? The answer is that was one of Chaim Bloom's trade steals. He stole a top Rays prospect for Jeffrey Springs and Chris Mazza. And everyone was like, oh my God, how did they finagle that? How did they get Hernandez? Why would the Rays part ways with him? And then it turned out Jeffrey Springs was actually really good and like an ace, and Hernandez kind of disappeared off the prospect map in Boston. He's been called up a couple times, never got an at-bat. He's a phantom player. He's Moonlight Graham, the catcher at this point in time. Had an 864 OPS and 219 at-bats at AAA last year for Arizona. He comes over, non-roster invitee, and I already like him more than Alex Jackson, so welcome aboard. I kind of tricked myself into thinking he was already here, but no, that's a flyer the Yankees took yesterday, and I like it. Put more names in that mix. I like JC Escara. I want to see what these guys do. This is a real battle. We do not know who the winner is going to be. Alex Jackson, defense first, hit like 120 last year. Let's see if we can upgrade that spot. This is a possible upgrade. And then the other name basically sounded like lefty Clay Holmes. Javian Sandridge, who, again, when I saw they invited Javian Sandridge, I was just like, oh, the villain from Dune? Cool. We got that guy. I had no idea who this was. Literally, I was like, I watch a lot of baseball. Literally have no idea who this is. 98 miles an hour from the left side. A sinker, a lefty who chucks a 98-mile-an-hour sinker. Sadly, no idea where it's going. 49 walks in 61 innings last year, 1.72 whip overall, 245 batting average against when players did make contact. So that's a little higher than you want, but 95 strikeouts in 61 innings. A hard thrower with sink who doesn't pitch to contact, usually, is missing bats or missing the zone. It does sound like lefty Clay Holmes to me. Remember how many people laughed when we obtained Clay Holmes in the summer of 21? Before he was an all-star closer last year, but before he was the league leader in blown saves, he was a pretty damn good pickup for the Yankees pitching lab, who quickly learned to command that nasty 98-mile-an-hour sinker on the black and then unlearned it. And some got lost in translation. I don't think Matt Blake is good enough that he could just take Javian Sandridge and immediately be like, oh, here's your problem, and like twist the nozzle and get a wrench in there, and all of a sudden he's dotting the corners instead of throwing it at batters' heads like Charlie Sheen in Major League. But if they can stop him from going just a bit outside, Bob Uecker style, that could easily be a second lefty in the Yankees pen. That's what I'm talking about when I say I trust these guys. I don't know if this is the solution, but I'd rather give Matt Blake a lefty with a 98-mile-an-hour sinker than not do it. So give me a couple weeks. Pitcher to catcher report tomorrow. Show up, Mr. Sandridge. Show me what you got.
Yeah, I do trust the Yankees in that regard. The other issue that comes to mind is just like, why do we have to do it this way? I don't know. Why do we have to hope that Matt Blake turns somebody into a star in order for us to complete the bullpen? So either way, I like that they've fostered a little bit of competition this spring. I like some of the depth here. I like some of the position and role battles here. So I think that hopefully that sets the tone, combined with position players arriving a little bit early to set an example, to get everything off on the right foot. But yeah, we'll see how all this stuff turns out when the action begins. We got this nice, really, really zoomed out video of Max Fried throwing. Did you see that one? That was a good one. Somebody in the outfield recording Max Fried throwing a couple pitches.
Yeah, I think it's the guy from, remember when everyone said, release the Yankees cheating tape? There was that intern with a camera rig in center field at the Astros game. I think that guy shot Max Fried from a bird's nest, thousands of feet away from the stadium.
Yeah, he shot it from the highway off of whatever the highway is in Tampa.
Yeah, Dale Mabry. He's like taking, NFL scheme. He's the Bill Belichick camera guy. He's, spying and trying to grab illicit videos of the, alignment. But yeah, thank you for that. We'd love to see Max Fried, blurry Max Fried.
Yeah, very good. But yeah, Some interesting names, some interesting reclamation projects, some position battles that are both positive and negative. Don't want a third base position battle between three underwhelming candidates, but that's where we're at this moment. Again, in my opinion, it's on the Yankees to get a little bit more professional before opening day. We'll see how they handle that. I'm hoping that whatever comes of this Stroman situation does not further cloud the organization's goal of winning a World Series this year, or at least getting back there to prove that last year wasn't a Juan Soto driven fluke. But yeah, I'm really much hoping that there's no holdout from Stroman, or he gets there and then he's kicked out, and then there's a giant tweet thread shitting on the Yankees once again, just like he did 5 years later, essentially saying, "Oh, I knew I shouldn't have signed with this team. The writing was on the wall 5 years ago."
Yeah. Note to everyone else: if you're thinking about signing with this team, don't. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, let's go defend that American League pennant then. Do you want to do a little John Birdie debate too, as well?
Yeah, let's do it.
After he heads over to the Cubs,
because I know we felt differently.
We do feel differently on this. After he heads over to the Cubs and you know, he's going to compete for a role there, depending on what they do with Bregman. He goes ahead and is the latest Yankee on record to say, I thought the Dodgers post-World Series victory lap was a little much. And I know how you feel about it, and I understand how most people feel about it, but it does, some of the backlash does feel a little bit like anti-Yankees bias to me. Look, back in my day when the Yankees were three-peating, which was great. I'm so glad that was my day and I was alive when they were doing that. I just remember them being a machine, sort of like an unholy machine. The star power came from the team dynamic. No one was yelling that they were unfair because they had Scott Brocious and Tino Martinez and Paul O'Neill. They just did an incredible job surrounding their core of talent with perfect fit free agent and trade acquisitions, and they steamrolled everybody. The Braves were the best in the NL, and it didn't matter. We're sweeping the 99 World Series. The Mets, upstart Mets, they've got destiny on their side. No, they don't. Go to hell. We're kicking you. So those Yankees used to just win World Series and then go on parades and hold 2000 era camcorders out of the crowd and videotape the parades. And then they would get on the podium and say stuff like, "That was so much fun. New York, we love you. We'll do it again next year." And then the whole crowd cheers. And that's what happened when you won a World Series. Now every athlete has a podcast and every athlete is a personal brand. And people like Joe Kelly, who were not in the fucking World Series at all, will stand on the field after the World Series and be like, yeah, you know, the Yankees, I've never seen a team that unprepared and terrible. It's kind of amazing that they even existed. Like, how did they get up in the morning? How'd they put their pants on? Like, all series long, we knew that these, you know, little tweaking virgins with muscle problems would have they couldn't beat us. And then Chris Taylor, who had one at-bat in the World Series, didn't register any statistics whatsoever, shows up on the Dodgers post-parade, like, all blazed podcast at Mookie Betts' house, and is like, look, we knew if we put the ball in play, the Yankees would shit down their legs. Okay, no, you didn't know that. It happened. But no, you didn't know a collapse in Game 5 was coming. You didn't. I mean, it was our worst fear. But you did not know that they would make 3 consecutive errors, mental and physical, and that you'd be able to capture that game. You were hoping that would happen. You were trying to put pressure on the Yankees by putting the ball in play, yes. But a lot of really confident talk coming from a lot of people who didn't do anything.
Yeah.
That sounded like it bordered on disrespectful to me. So John Birdie, who didn't play in the World Series, was injured and was off the roster, just pointed out that, hey, you know, felt a little disrespectful from our end. Sounded like, you know, they didn't think the Yankees belonged in the World Series at all. And it's a 7-game series, and we lost. It's kind of enough is enough, right? Any team can lose a 7-game series. Would have preferred that they just, you know, they know that too. They've lost plenty of 7- and 5-game series over the years. The Dodgers have choked out of the playoffs pretty much every season except for this one. So they were 1 game away famously from going down in 4 in the NLDS to the Padres, and they should have, and the Padres never scored again. So those are the breaks. You know, Dodgers pivoted at the right time. Yankees hit them in a 7-game series in which they got outscored by 1 run across 5 games. Some of that is because they ran up the score against the beleaguered part of the Dodgers bullpen in Game 4. But some of that is also because Game 1 was super tight. Game 2 was super tight. Game 4 was slightly less tight. And Game 5 was, again, won by an inch and choked by the Yankees. So if the Yankees didn't belong in the World Series, then neither did the Dodgers. Shohei Ohtani got hurt. He was bad. That's luck of the draw. Things happen. But the Dodgers come out on top. And the Dodgers victory lap, this 5-game series win that they won by a grand total of 1 run, in a way that I've never seen before. So I think you're allowed to talk that talk. You can say whatever you want if you won the World Series, but I think it's also totally fair for John Birdie, even though he didn't play in the World Series, to say, that's kind of enough, right? A little bit disrespectful, right? To pretend we didn't belong. I understand the backlash, and I understand that, hey, John Birdie didn't even play, but Joe Kelly didn't even play either. Chris Taylor didn't even play. He's the worst qualified player in the series. So I'm in favor. I don't think it's going to reflect well on us. But again, if a Yankee had talked the way Joe Kelly talked, then they would have been crucified. So I think it's fine to have a little bit of backlash there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with any of that. I think I'm at the next level of the conversation now, where it's like, we talked about the shit talking. We talked about how it was Bush League. Why is it coming up again in February? And it's like, again, coming from an inconsequential voice in Birdie, who played 25 games, finally came back for the postseason, and then promptly got injured again. And then he's being asked about this, and he's saying, oh, it was disrespectful. And it's like, yeah, we know it was disrespectful, but what happened? What happened was that you guys embarrassed yourselves. And it's like what we talked about 2 weeks ago in football with the Chiefs and the Bills matchup. What was everybody saying? Well, Bills can't leave this up to the refs. What's going to happen if they leave it up to the refs? They're going to fucking lose. And they left it up to the refs, and they lost. So what did the Yankees do? They left it up to their inabilities to tighten the game or to play at a high championship caliber level, and they failed in that department, and they looked like inferior. They looked like wildly inferior competition, despite, again, this only being in the aggregate a one-run series, and they left themselves open to criticism because of how embarrassing it was. So, in my opinion, if you win the World Series and you beat your opponent handily, which is what the Dodgers did, regardless of how we look at the runs scored or not, you can talk all the shit you want. Did I think it was unfair just because, like, the Dodgers, it came from non-contributors, and the Dodgers showed no grace after being in this position for how many years? Blowing the 2019 NLDS to the Nationals, blowing the 2023 NLDS to the Diamondbacks, shitting down. You want to talk about shitting down your leg? They shit down their leg in that Braves series, the NLCS in 2021.
Yeah, it's kind of their whole thing for a long time. They shit down their legs annually.
Yeah, shit down your leg in the Red Sox World Series. Like, you want to talk about an embarrassing World Series? That was arguably like the one game you won was an 18-game marathon, and you should have lost because Nathan Eovaldi went like 7 no-hit innings in relief.
It ended with your number one trade deadline acquisition twizzling himself into the ground and falling on the floor.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that's frustrating. Like, the Dodgers, of all teams, it seemed like a way for them to cope and put all of that shit in the rear view for themselves, so they could just be done with it, because they had dealt with that type of criticism for, essentially since I want to say 2018. I think a lot of teams had sympathy for them after 2017 because it was a 7-game series. Then they found out 2 years later that they were the victims of a cheating scandal. But yeah, I mean, it's just more commentary that makes the Yankees look weak, in my opinion. Like, it's either you just move on from this, or you talk about how disrespectful it was 2 months ago, 3 months ago. And I get, maybe John Birdie didn't have that opportunity, but at this point, former Yankees should know when there's an expiration date on these types of things. And when you're being put in a position to make yourself look weaker or softer, or like you're making excuses, like, yeah, to an extent, the Yankees, an argument could be made they didn't deserve to be in the World Series because of the managerial gaffes that they made, the silent offense against, some inferior pitching when they had the opportunity to open the door, when they made all their defensive errors in Game 1 and Game 5. Like, yeah, that's not a championship caliber team. So, like, it's not like the Dodgers' criticism was unfounded. It was excessive and it was a little bit harsh, but, like, that's the price you pay for losing. And again, just like the Gleyber thing that Cashman brought up on Thursday, I don't know why we're still talking about shit that happened, 3-4 months ago at this point, because this is where you're harping, or if someone asks you a question and you're a former Yankee and you went through this and you didn't feel good about it, like, what's the sense in getting more in depth about it? Just say, you know what, we lost the World Series. Those guys, those guys said what they said, whether you agree with it or not. It is what it is. But I mean, we didn't play well, and we paid the price, and that's it. The excuse for the Yankees constantly in all these conversations is we didn't play our best when we got to the World Series. It was no, you had all of these weaknesses on display all year, and to a degree, you pissed down your leg in the biggest moment and had all these weaknesses come to the forefront, and now you paid the price. It's not that you didn't play your best. It's everything that was holding you back all year finally reared its head, because that's how it works when you try to neglect problems and sweep things under the rug. And again, for someone like Birdie, who played in 25 games, almost blew one ALCS game by himself because of defensive inefficiencies and grounding into a double play when he didn't need to swing. It was like the first pitch or whatever. Like, I don't need this guy talking right now, and I don't need another target on the Yankees' back. So that's really where I'm coming from. I'm fully on the, fuck Joe Kelly, fuck Chris Taylor train, because, I mean, get over yourselves. Like, you literally didn't do anything, and you have not been good in years. So you don't have a leg to stand on. But again, they won. They have World Series rings, whether they contributed or not. And it's now the Yankees who are the laughingstock, and they have to fix that this year.
Yeah, it is up to them. Joe Kelly had as much to do with this World Series as Tom Niedenfuhr. I think the most important thing is just the Dodgers can say whatever they want. I do wonder if Chris Taylor meant to say piss when he said shit. People usually pee down their legs, but hey,
wet poop is always a good one.
Of course, but he should have specified. Maybe he was too faded on the podcast to remember what variety of poop he was accusing the Yankees of pooping. But hey, maybe we'll get him on the show. I'd love to grill him. Hey, yeah, exactly. Were you talking about going full George Brett, or what kind of poop were you referring to in that scenario? Hey, look, it's the biggest losers on the Dodgers. I think it's cemented anything. It's just that Joe Kelly is the worst. Yeah. And I didn't hate the Dodgers last year. I was excited for that World Series matchup. And afterwards, I hate the Dodgers. So let's go. Let's bring it into 2025. They are the Chiefs. They are the team everyone's looking to take down. No one has repeated in Major League Baseball since the Yankees did it in 98, 99, and then again in 99 and 2000. Pretty sick. The Dodgers are overwhelming favorites to do it right now. So it might come down to the Yankees. It might come down to the Mets, Braves, Phillies, even those very same Padres that took them to the limit last year. Either way, target on your back, Dodgers fans. Dodgers fans will enjoy it until a moment comes when they don't. Chiefs fans are having a bad time today. The Dodgers might repeat and win the World Series. They might also have the most gleeful elimination that any team has had in decades if they lose. Not an ounce of sympathy for any of you. In 2021, 22, 23, I was getting to the point where I was like, man, if they don't win a full season World Series soon, like Clayton Kershaw never wins one, this is going to get sad and weird. And then last year, Kershaw doesn't even participate. They finally do. They get the monkey off their back. Congrats. Now you've done it twice. Definitely once, kind of another time. From here on out, I can't think of a major league team I've had less empathy for. So let's have a good time. The season's around the corner. We're about to find out if the Dodgers have it in them or not. We'll be back here Thursday, 2 o'clock Eastern, and then on all podcast platforms afterwards. So please do join us. We would love to see you. I'm Adam Weinrib. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Weinrib. Thomas Carannante, where can the people find you?
At Tommy's_takes. We are at the official Yanks Go Yard account at Yanks Go Yard FS. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We appreciate you guys tuning in today and listening when you do. Very grateful. Head on over to yanksgoyard.com. That's where all the content is. That is where we will be updating you on all things spring training. We got rumors going around. We got other roster decisions and signings that maybe you're not seeing that are on the transactions page that we're going a little bit more in depth with to inform you. So head on over there. We'll have plenty of content up for the remainder of the year per usual. Appreciate you guys reading and supporting Yanks Go Yard. We'll talk to you again on Thursday right here. See ya.
Turn your notifications on, hit subscribe. We'll be back. Will you? Take care.